Well, that worked today. Hi.
Big ups. Here we go. I
I'm
look
trying to-
tan. What's happening? I
Yeah,
haven't been outside in
I
a
look
week.
not tan. Oh,
No, you look like a ghost.
I'm a ghost.
This is your little home office. Oh my God, we have a lot of people in this chat right now. Hi, everyone. Hi, Devin. Oh my God. Hi, Chris. Look at everyone.
Hi, guys.
So,
Is everybody
ready to
happy,
listen?
inside, healthy? Taking.
Is it? Oh, hi, Amanda. Hi, Drip Kit.
I love drip kits. Oh my God.
Drip Kit is if you guys, let me just put a plug for Drip Kit because this is not a paid promotion.
It's not. It's
hi, LSD. How are you doing? We have some good peeps in here. So Drip Kit is basically
like my mug.
this. Did you make that?
No, I wish, but it's my favorite mug.
Who is them?
Who is she? I don't know, but
yeah, she's gorgeous. So basically Drip Kit is this thing that just go to Drip Kit, just Google Drip Kit, but it's basically the most amazing instant coffee that you'll possibly ever find. That's what I'll say right now. And then I use it religiously.
I'm also into my Australian bush space clearing. I've been doing a lot of.
Excuse me? What is it?
Australian bush space clearing.
Right.
Australian bush flower essences.
Oh, I was going to say it's an Australian bush cleaning.
I hate you.
Okay. Well, I was just curious. I was like, oh,
yeah,
must be the flavor.
Totally
okay.
Get it.
So someone said they haven't had coffee for 2 weeks. God bless. We're here for you.
I thought about it. I was like, should I stop drinking coffee tomorrow? And then the answer was no, it's not the time for me. No. But I think that's very admirable. Right now I have a tea, a coffee, and a water in front of me.
We tend to do 3+ beverages. Oh, wait, I want to plug one more product, especially in this trying time when people are really sanitation conscious. This is so me. I'm, because I'm a tech nerd, and Emma's has a lot of beauty stuff that she's brought into my life, and I try to bring tech stuff into her life. This is Whoosh.
I love the name.
Which is also a nickname for me that you have.
Yeah, Whoosh.
Whoosh is the, as my mother would say, premier screen cleaner for iPhone. It
gorgeous.
It both sanitizes and cleans. You cannot really clean a phone with a Clorox wipe. So that's all I'll say. Whoosh. I bought it. It's gorgeous. It comes with this little rag. You clean it off for all your tech stuff. You're welcome.
I had to find out with everybody else.
I'll send you the 70. I'll send you the 75% full. Okay, guys. So
guys, we're here to read.
Yeah,
we're here. We were actually going back and forth on what story to read, and we've landed on one by Leslie Jamison from her book, which was truly one of my favorite reads of last year. Make It Scream, Make It Burn. We love the cover as well. We love Leslie so much.
She also wrote an amazing book that you guys may have read or not. And if you haven't, you should also read that one called The Empathy Exams, which is also essays. We'll post about both of them. But Make It Scream, Make It Burn, I guess, came out, I don't know, you like blew through it.
I was just completely captured. It's all short stories, essays. And they're all just completely breathtaking in their own way. So we thought we would read or start reading the first one, which is called 52 Blue.
And I've put the link in whatever this one. There's a link in the chat, basically. If you want to read along with us, you can. If you want to just listen, you can. Emma and I tend to read out loud a lot anyway. The Atavist is who published this originally. So we're going to read it from the Atavist, and if we feel like it's getting long, we might stop and you can finish it, but we're going to start. Why not? Because we need, some things to take our mind off of the crazy right now. So, do you want to start? And then
I thought you could start.
Okay, fine.
Goody goody.
All right. I'll just stop when I feel like it, and then you'll start.
Well, no, we'll just, you read a page, I'll read a page, you read a page, I'll read a page.
I'm not, yeah, I'm reading it. Sorry.
Oh, is it not page?
No, I have my PDF. I have it. My book was at my office, so I'm trying to find. Here we go. I got it. You're right. Here we go. So this is from the chapter called Longing, and the story is called 52 Blue. December 7th, 1992, Whidbey Island, Puget Sound. The world wars were over. The other wars were over. Korea, Vietnam. The Cold War was finally over too. The Whidbey Island Naval Air Station remained. So did the Pacific, its waters vast and fathomless beyond an airfield named for an airman whose body was never found. William Ott, who died in the Battle of the Coral Sea. This is how it goes. The ocean swallows human bodies whole and makes them immortal. William Alt became a runaway that sends other men into the sky. At the Naval Air Station, the infinite Pacific appeared as finite data, gathered by a network of hydrophones spread along the ocean floor. Initially used to monitor Soviet subs during the Cold War, these hydrophones had since been turned towards the sea itself, transforming its formless noises into something measurable, pages of printed graphs rolling out of a spectrograph machine. On that particular December day in 1992, Petty Officer Second Class Velma Ronquil heard a strange sound. She stretched it out on a different spectrogram so she could see it better. She couldn't quite believe that it was coming in at 52 hertz. She beckoned one of the audio technicians. He needed to come back, she said. He needed to take another look. The technician came back. He took another look. His name was Joe George. Velma told him, "I think this is a whale."
Good job.
Thank you.
Joe thought, holy cow, it hardly seemed possible. The sound pattern looked like the call of a blue whale, but blue whales usually come in somewhere between 15 and 20 hertz, an almost imperceptible rumble, on the periphery of what the human ear can detect. 52 hertz was off the charts, but here it was, right in front of them. The audio signature of a creature moving through Pacific waters with a singularly high-pitched song. Whales make calls for a number of reasons: to navigate, to find food, to communicate with one another. For certain whales, including humpbacks and blues, songs also play a role in sexual selection. Blue males sing louder than females, and the volume of their singing, at more than 180 decibels, makes them the loudest animals in the world. They click and grunt and trill and hum and moan. They sound like foghorns. Their calls can travel thousands of miles through the ocean. Because this whale's frequency was unprecedented, the folks at Whidbey kept tracking him for years. Every migration season, as he made his way south from Alaska to Mexico. They figured it was a he, as only males sing during mating season. His path wasn't unusual, only his song, along with the fact that they never detected any other whales around him. He always seemed to be alone. This whale was calling out high, and apparently to no one, or at least no one seemed to be answering. The acoustic technicians called him 52 Blue. A scientific report would eventually acknowledge that no other whale calls with similar characteristics had ever been reported. It is perhaps difficult to accept, the report conceded, that there could have been only one of this kind in this large oceanic expanse.
The drive from Seattle to Whidbey Island took me through the plain-spoken pageantry of Washington state industry. Massive stacks of cut lumber, rivers clogged with tree trunks like fish trapped in pens, towers of candy-colored shipping containers near Skagit Port, and a collection of dirty white silos near Deception Pass Bridge, its steel span looming majestically over Puget Sound. Hard sparkling water glinting with shards of sunlight nearly 200 feet below. On the far side of the bridge, the island felt pastoral and otherworldly, almost defensive. Litter and it will hurt, one sign read. Another said, space heaters need space. Whidbey Island often calls itself the longest island in America, but this isn't strictly true. Whidbey is long, the Seattle Times observed in 2000, but let's not stretch it. It's long enough to hold a kite festival, a mussel festival, an annual bike race, the Tour de Whidbey, 4 inland lakes, and a yearly murder mystery game that turns the entire town of Langley, population 1,035, into a crime scene. Joe George, the technician who first identified 52 Blue, still lives in a modest hillside home perched on the northern end of Whidbey, about 6 miles from the air station. When I visited, he answered the door smiling, a burly man with silver hair, no nonsense, but friendly. Though he hadn't worked at the air station for 20 years, he was still able to get us past security with his Navy ID. He told me he uses it whenever he comes back to the base to drop off his recycling. Outside the officers' club, men in flight suits were drinking cocktails on a wooden deck. The coastline was ragged and beautiful beyond, waves crashing into dark sand, salt wind moving through the evergreens. Joe explained that when he worked at the air station, his team, the team responsible for processing audio data from the hydrophones, was fairly disconnected from the rest of the base. It was a question of security, he said. When we reached his old building, I saw what he meant. It was surrounded by double fences topped with razor wire. He told me that some of the other servicemen on the base used to think his building was some kind of prison. They never knew what it was for. When I asked him what he had thought those strange sounds had been back in 1992, before he realized they were whale calls, he said, "I can't tell you that, it's classified."
Back at his house, Joe pulled out a sheaf of papers from his days spent tracking 52 Blue. They were computer maps documenting nearly a decade of migratory patterns. The whale, I felt like I was in school all of a sudden. You know, when you're
it's weird, you feel like the camera's on, exactly.
They were computer maps documenting nearly a decade of migratory patterns. The whale's journey each season marked by a different color, yellow, orange, purple, in the crude lines of mid-90s computer graphics. Joe showed me charts of 52's song and explained the lines in metrics so I could compare its signature with more typical whale noise. The lower frequencies of regular blues, the much higher frequency of humpbacks. Blue whale songs hold various kinds of sounds, long purrs and moans, constant or modulated, and 52 Blues vocalizations showed these same distinctive patterns, only on a wildly different frequency, one just above the lowest note on a tuba. The brief recorded clip of 52 he played me, sped up for human hearing, sounded ghostly, a reedy, pulsing, searching sound, the oral equivalent of a beam of light murkily visible through thick fog on a moonlit night. Joe clearly enjoyed explaining his charts and maps. It seemed to have something to do with his love for organization and order. As he proudly showed me the fruits of his various and somewhat surprising hobbies, his impressive collection of carnivorous plants and the bees he raised to feed them, or the pristine musket he built from a kit for one of his 18th century fur trapper rendezvous reenactments. A clear penchant for care and conscientiousness emerged. He had a deep desire to be accurate and meticulous about everything he did. As he showed me the cobra lilies, his favorite plants, he explained how their translucent hoods trick-trapped flies into exhausting themselves by flying toward the light, evidently impressed by the economy and ingenuity of their design, and then carefully fixed a frost cloth over their curled green backs to protect them from the cold.
I sense that
some tongue twisters there.
I know. Well, she writes
beautifully.
Such beautiful language, but sometimes it's hard to read. I sense that Joe enjoyed the chance to pull out his old whale charts. They took him back to the days when the story of 52 was still unfolding, and he was right in the middle of it. Joe told me he'd arrived at Whidbey after several years of what was technically classified as arduous duty on a base in Iceland, though he explained that those years weren't particularly arduous at all. His kids built snowmen by the Blue Lagoon. Joe was a good candidate for Whidbey. He was already trained as an acoustic technician, already prepared for the work that happened in his squat little bunker behind the razor wire fences. The hydrophone tracking program, also known as the Sound Surveillance System, or SOSUS, was a bit of a bastard child, Joe told me. After the Cold War ended, without Soviet submarines to listen to, the Navy needed more convincing about how the expensive hydrophone array could earn its keep. The work that emerged surprised even the ones who started doing it. Daryl Martin, an acoustic technician who worked with Joe at Whidbey, described it like this. We went from being experts on sharks of steel to tracking living, breathing animals. He said, it's just endless what you can hear out of the ocean. Now the mystery of one particular whale survives as a man sitting at his kitchen table, pulling out weathered folders to point out the ordinary looking graph of an extraordinary song.
Oh, should I go?
Oh my God, no, I'm sorry, I forgot the last paragraph. July 20, 2007, Harlem, New York. Leonora knew she was going to die. Not just someday, but soon. She'd been suffering from fibroids and bleeding for years, sometimes so heavily that she was afraid to leave her apartment. She grew obsessed with blood, thinking about blood, dreaming about blood, writing poems about blood. She stopped working as a case supervisor for the city, a job she'd held for more than a decade. At that point, Lenora was 48 years old. She'd always been a self-sufficient person. She'd been working since she was 14. She'd never been married, though. She'd had offers. She liked to know that she could support herself. But this was a new level of isolation. One family member told her, "You are in a very dark place." And she said she no longer wanted to see her.
By summer, things had gotten worse. Leonora felt truly ill. Relentless nausea, severe constipation, aches across her whole body. Her wrists were swollen, her stomach bloated, her vision blurred with jagged spirals of color. She could hardly breathe when she was lying down, so she barely slept. When she did sleep, her dreams were strange. One night, she saw a horse-drawn hearse moving across the cobblestone streets of another century's Harlem. She picked up the horse's reins, looked it straight in the eye, and knew it had come for her. She felt so convinced she was going to die that she unlocked her apartment door so her neighbors wouldn't have trouble removing her body. She called her doctor to tell her as much. "I'm pretty sure I'm going to die." And her doctor got pissed, said she needed to call the paramedics, that she was going to live. As the paramedics were wheeling Leonora away from her apartment on a gurney, she asked them to turn around and take her back so she could lock the door. This was how she knew she'd regained faith in her own life. If she wasn't going to die, she didn't want to leave her door unlocked. That request, asking the paramedics to turn around, is the last thing Leonora can remember before 2 months of darkness. That night in July was the beginning of a medical odyssey. 5 days of surgery, 7 weeks in a coma, 6 months in the hospital, that would eventually deliver her in her own time and her own way to the story of 52 Blue.
If anyone, sorry, I just want to say, if anyone's joined like recently, I just want to say we're here reading, you good?
Yeah, my foot went up.
We're here reading a short story called 52 Blue by Leslie Jameson, and I put the link in the description. We're probably not going to get to read all of it because it is kind of long, but we're doing it because we thought it would be a nice, soothing distraction from what's going on right now. And we hope you guys are reading a lot. So here we go. I'm starting on page 9. Okay. During the years when Joe and Daryl were tracking 52 Blue, they worked under the supervision of Bill Watkins, an acoustic expert from Woods Hole, who came across the country to Whidbey Island every few months to hear about what they'd found. Everyone who told me about Watkins spoke of him in almost mythic terms. The number of languages he spoke kept changing every time I heard it, 6, 12, 13. One of his former research assistants claimed it was 20. He'd been born to Christian missionaries stationed in French Guinea. According to Daryl, Watkins had hunted elephants with his father when he was a kid. He could actually hear 20 hertz, which is extremely low for any human, Daryl told me. You and I can't hear that, but he could actually hear the elephants in the distance, and he would tell his dad which way to go. Over the course of his career, Watkins developed much of the technology and methodology that made it possible to record and analyze whale songs, whale tags, underwater playback experiments, location methods. He developed the first tape recorder capable of capturing whale vocalizations. For Joe and Daryl, 52 Blue's unusual frequency was interesting mainly because it made him easy to track. You could always distinguish his call, so you always knew where he was traveling. Other whales were harder to tell apart, their patterns of motion harder to discern. The possibility of particularity, this whale, among all the whales, allowed for an ongoing relationship to 52 as an individual creature, while other whales blurred into a more anonymous collective body. 52's particularity, as well as his apparent isolation, lent him a certain sheen of personality. We've always laughed when we were tracking him, Daryl told me. We said, maybe he's heading up to Baja for the Lady Blues. Daryl's jokes echoed with the familiarity of affectionate condescension, the way frat brothers might talk about the runt of a pledge class who never had much luck with girls. 52 struck out, look again, tried again. 52 never let up with that song. It was something more than a job. Daryl bought his wife a whale necklace during the years he spent tracking 52, and she still wears it.
Joe had his own fixations. One time he disappeared for over a month, he said of 52, his inflection registering a mystery that clearly still engaged him. And at the end of the month, when they finally picked him up again, he was farther out in the Pacific than he'd ever been. Why was there that gap, Joe wondered. What happened during that time? Watkins was the driving force behind the whale tracking, but he couldn't keep it running forever. After 9/11, Joe explained, all the money disappeared for good. As it turned out, however, the saga of 52 was just beginning. After the Woods Hole researchers published their findings about 52 Blue for the first time in 2004, 3 years after the funding dried up, they started getting inundated with notes about the whale. Bill Watkins had died a month after the paper was accepted, so it was his former research assistant, a woman named Mary Ann Daher, who found herself receiving the flood of letters. They weren't typical pieces of professional correspondence. They came, as the New York Times reporter Andrew Revkin wrote at the time, from whale lovers lamenting the notion of a lonely heart of the cetacean world, or from people who identified with the whale for other reasons, because he seemed restless or independent, because he sang his own song. After Revkin's story ran that December, headlined Song of the Sea, a cappella and unanswered, more letters flooded Woods Hole. One marine mammal researcher quoted in the story, Kate Stafford, may have inadvertently fanned the flames. He's saying, hey, I'm out here. Well, nobody is phoning home. These letters came from the heartbroken and the deaf, from the lovelorn and the single, the once bitten, twice shy, and the twice bitten, forever shy. People who identified with the whale or hurt for him, ached for whatever set of feelings they projected onto him.
A legend was born, the loneliest whale in the world. In the years since, 52 Blue, or 52 Hertz, as he is known to many of his devotees, has inspired numerous sob story headlines, not just the loneliest whale in the world, but the whale whose unique call has stopped him finding love, a lonely whale's unrequited love song. There is one whale that 0 other whales can hear, and it's very alone. It's the saddest thing ever, and science should try to talk to it. There have been imaginative accounts of a solitary bachelor headed down to the Mexican Riviera to troll haplessly for the biggest mammal babes alive, his musical mating calls ringing for hours through the darkness of the deepest seas, broadcasting a wide repertory of heartfelt tunes. A singer in New Mexico, unhappy at his day job in tech, wrote an entire album dedicated to 52. Another singer in Michigan wrote a kid's song about the whale's plight. An artist in upstate New York made a sculpture out of old plastic bottles and called it 52 Hertz. A music producer in Los Angeles started buying cassette tapes at garage sales and recording over them with 52's song. The song was quickly becoming a kind of sentimental seismograph, suggesting multiple storylines: alienation and determination, autonomy and longing, not only a failure to communicate, but also a dogged persistence in the face of this failure. People have set up Twitter accounts to speak for him, including at 52_Hertz_whale, who gets right to the point. Hello, yoo-hoo, is anybody out there? Hashtag sad life. I'm so lonely, hashtag lonely, hashtag forever alone.
Leonora woke up in St. Luke's Roosevelt Hospital in September 2007 in the aftermath of a 7-week coma, but still near the beginning of the medical odyssey that would deliver her to 52 Blue. Across the course of 5 days of surgery, the doctors had removed nearly 3 feet of her intestines in order to cut out all the necrotic tissue that had rotted around a severe intestinal blockage. Then they put her in the coma to help her recover more efficiently. But so much recovery remained ahead of her. She couldn't walk. She had trouble remembering words, and she could barely speak anyway. Her trachea was so scarred from all the tubes that had been thrust down it during her coma. She couldn't count past 10. She couldn't even quite count to 10. But she pretended. She didn't let on. She didn't want other people to see her struggling. Leonora had grown up around struggle, raised mostly by her grandmother, a determined and resourceful woman, 4'11" and blind from diabetes, who'd come to the States from Chennai by way of Trinidad. She'd always told Leonora that her people back in India thought America was full of golden sidewalks. But Leonora remembers the parts of Harlem where she grew up, a neighborhood near Bradhurst Avenue, as something of an urban war zone during her high school years in the mid-70s, with its own police task force and sky-high murder rates. When Leonora got interested in photography one summer, people started calling her death photographer because so many of her subjects ended up as victims of violence. Leonora was determined to leave, eventually saving enough bartending money to fund a trip to Paris, where she spent a blurry year walking up and down the Boulevard Saint-Michel with a corkscrew in her hand, taking a trip to Capri, where she and a friend met a pair of amorous lifeguards broke into an abandoned villa, and ate bread and jam off the dusty kitchen table. Back in New York, Leonora met a man she almost married. But when they went to the courthouse, she got such terrible cramps that she had to go to the bathroom and realized it was her body telling her, don't do this. She listened. She stayed in the bathroom until the offices closed. A police officer had to get her out.
She got a job as a case manager for the city, working with clients on food stamps or welfare, but grew increasingly isolated in her personal life. By the time she was hospitalized in July 2007, she'd retreated from the world so much that her time in the hospital felt less like an abrupt rupture and more like the continuation of her descent. For Leonora, the hardest part of the recovery process was losing her self-sufficiency, realizing that she could no longer be independent or take care of herself as she regained her voice. She started to grow more comfortable asking for what she needed. When she eventually realized the source of a stench she'd grown aware of, it was her own hair matted with blood, she demanded that one of the doctors cut it, and it turned out looking pretty good. They joked that the doctor might have a second career as a hairdresser. During the 6 months she spent at the hospital and various rehab facilities, Leonora felt abandoned. She didn't have many visitors. It seemed like everyone in her life was fleeing her damage, pushing her away because they didn't want to be around her sickness. She assumed her illness made them uncomfortable because it reminded them of their own mortality. When people did visit, she perceived a dark energy coming from them. It nauseated her. When her father came to see her, he told her over and over that she looked like her mother, a woman he hadn't spoken about in many years. She felt that her illness raised long-buried emotions of anger and loss in him. Leonora was cut off from others and from the world itself. She couldn't even watch television because it gave her headaches. It was late one night alone and trolling the internet that she came upon the story of 52 Blue. By then, the story of the whale had been floating around the internet for several years, but it resonated for Leonora with a particular urgency. He was speaking a language that no one else could speak, she told me. And here I was, without a language. I had no more language to describe what had happened to me. I was like him. I had nothing. No one to communicate with. No one was hearing me. No one was hearing him. And I thought, I hear you. I wish you could hear me.
Like the whales, she felt that her own language was adrift. She was struggling to come back to any sense of self, much less find the words for what she was thinking or feeling. The world seemed to be pulling away, and the whale offered an echo of this difficulty. She remembers thinking, I wish I could speak whale. She found a strange kind of hope in the possibility that 52 Blue knew he wasn't alone. I was like, here he is. He's talking. He's saying something. He's singing, and nobody's really understanding. But there are people listening. I bet he knows people are listening. He must feel it. The hunt for an elusive whale is the most famous story in the history of American literature. Hast thou seen the white whale? But as much as Moby Dick is about the quest for an animal or for revenge, it's also about the quest for metaphor. The attempt to understand what can't be understood. Ishmael calls the whiteness of the whale a dumb blankness full of meaning, full of many meanings actually. Divinity and its absence, primal power and its refusal, the possibility of revenge and the possibility of annihilation. Of all these things, the albino whale was the symbol, Ishmael explains. Wonder ye then at the fiery hunt. When I first began looking into the story of 52 Blue, I reached out to Mary Ann Daher at Woods Hole, hoping she could, reading out loud. Wow, got to do it more.
It's tough. Well, these are tongue
different
twisters.
On camera. I feel like I'm in middle school. Okay, where was I?
A lot of people are in middle school right now on laptops.
I know it. Everyone's doing school online, huh?
School online,
That's how I did all of high school online.
You're like, pay me.
I did that. How would you pronounce this woman's name?
I think you're saying it right. Daher. Yeah.
I'm sorry. That's another thing I learned about being homeschooled is that I know what most words mean, but the pronunciation is always, it can be off for me because
you were in a vacuum. Nobody was giving you.
Yeah. So right. I have pronunciation problems. Anywho. Okay. I'll just go When I first began looking into the story of 52 Blue, I reached out to Mary Ann Daher at Woods Hole, hoping she could help me understand how the story of this whale had jumped the bounds of science and become something more like a rallying cry. Her role in the story was curious. She'd become the unwitting confessor for a growing flock of devotees simply because her name was on a paper recounting works for which she'd been a research assistant years before.
Relate. I'm kidding.
Hmm? Oh, I thought you said relate. I was like,
I did. I was joking. I was like, I relate.
Oh, I thought you said we're late.
Oh, no.
Like,
I was like, I relate.
late.
No. I was like, relate.
Relate. I get all sorts of emails, she told one reporter at the time, some of them very touching, genuinely. It just breaks your heart to read some of them, asking why I can't go out there and help this animal. Eventually, the media attention started to grate on her. It's been pretty painful, she told another reporter in 2013. You name the country, and I've had a phone call wanting to get information. And I haven't worked on this since 2006 or so. And, oh God, Watkins would be dismayed, to put it mildly.
I was eager to speak with Daher anyway. I pictured the two of us at Woods Hole, meeting by the sea, locking eyes, nursing cups of coffee in the salt air. How did it feel to get those letters? I'd asked her, and she'd tell me about the tug on her heart each time. Her inbox turned into confessional booth. Perhaps she'd recite one from memory, the one that had moved her the most. He is hope and loss at once. I'd hear some break in her voice, and I'd copy her words. I'd copy the break. I'd make note of her scientific neutrality, showing the strain at its seams, nearly torn open by a lonely stranger's helpless wonder. It could have gone like that. Perhaps there is another world in which it did. This world, however, holds only her refusal to return my emails.
Relate.
The Woods Hole media relations representative made it very clear. Daher was done talking about the whale, done refusing to make assumptions about the whale, done correcting other people's assumptions about the whale. She'd already said everything she had to say. The last journalist Daher agreed to talk to was a writer named Kieran Mulvaney. The transcript of their conversation gives a sense of her wariness and aggravation. We don't know what the heck it is, she said, when asked about the cause of 52's odd song. Is he alone? I don't know. Most people like to imagine this creature just out there swimming by his lonesome, just singing away, and nobody's listening. But I can't say that. Is he successful reproductively? I haven't the vaguest idea. Nobody can answer those questions. Is he lonely? I hate to attach human emotions like that. Do whales get lonely? I don't know. I don't even want to touch that topic. Daher never agreed to speak to me. She never agreed to pass along the letters she'd received from all the people who had been moved by this animal. So I went looking for them on my own.
I underlined this just from the first time I read it. I liked that line that said, he is hope and loss at once.
Yeah.
I thought that was sweet.
It's a great line. Do you want to read one more page and then we can maybe come back and read another time, or people can read the rest of it? Or how much do we have?
Huh? I'm looking. Sorry, I was just looking at my underlines. Why don't we read? Okay. Yeah, let's read. Let's stop at.
Where are we on 17, right? Or no, sorry, we're on 16.
Do you want to read like 4 more pages?
Yeah, let's do it.
Stop at 20.
Yeah.
And then everybody can finish the rest. I mean,
all
right.
I love it. I mean, we can finish it.
Why? Is everyone bored of us?
No, I mean, I love it. Do you guys want us to keep reading? Can you send some hearts?
I feel like there's people here.
Oh, no, there's definitely people. He is lost in hope at the same time. I don't think so. I mean, I'm engrossed in the story personally.
Me too.
But, you know.
Other than.
I think we have some hearts, though.
How do you
people are saying it's soothing. Do you not see the hearts?
No, I mean, I see just hearts.
Oh, I don't think you can quantify the hearts.
Oh. I love all the hearts.
But Pink Tomato Pillow just sent personal hearts, so. And someone just said, Je suis une fan. Okay.
Said what?
Je suis une fan, which I like. Shauna Richardson, who follows us, just said, I'm living for this personally. So we can continue on. That's all we need to know.
Okay. At first, they were just voices out of the digital ether. A Polish tabloid photographer, an Irish farmer's cooperative employee, an American Muslim woman who associated 52 Blue with the prophet Yunus. They congregated at a Facebook page dedicated to the whale, where most of the messages converged on 2 themes: feeling bad for 52 and wanting to find 52. Denise posted one message, find 52 hurts, over and over and over again one morning at 8:09, 8:11, 8:14, 8:14 a second time, and 8:16. A woman named Jen wrote, I just want to give it a hug. Shorna, a 22-year-old in Kent, England, told me that learning about 52 gave her a way to understand the isolation she felt after her brother was killed when she was 13. The abiding conviction that her grief was nothing anyone else could ever understand. Her family didn't want to talk about it. Therapists were telling her that she should feel. The whale never told her what to feel. It just gave a shape to what she already felt, which was that she was on a different wavelength to other people. Juliana was a 19-year-old English major at the University of Toronto who told me she understood the whale as the epitome of every person who's ever felt too weird to love. For her, he represented anyone wandering alone, or anyone, herself included, trying to find someone who accepts us for our weaknesses and faults.
Oh, this is going to be a doozy. Trying to find someone who accepts us for our weaknesses and our faults.
No, I'm going to underline that one now, but I underlined the epitome of every person who's ever felt too weird to love. Sweet.
This name is a doozy.
Do you like that I stopped before that?
Well, no, it's a big new. It must be some kind of, I don't know, but I'll start here. Does anyone here know how to pronounce this name? Is anyone from a country where this is a common name? I don't know.
Zbigniew. Pronunciation class.
Well, I think you can also wait. I think it's a Polish name. Oh. It's a Polish name that's pronounced. Is there anyone here from Poland? Oh, here, wait. They're going to read it. Oh, frick. You know, usually like you can get Wikipedia to read it to you.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah, it's a Czech or Polish name. All right, cool. We're getting, I like to get in the weeds. Okay. So, Zbigniew is how I imagine it. A 26-year-old photo editor at the biggest daily tabloid in Poland decided to get the outline of 52 blue tattooed across his back after the end of a 6-year relationship. Someone got a Belletrist tattoo.
Where?
On their arm, I think. I'm sure people have tattoos of you on them. Or of your characters, maybe. That's not the craziest thing.
That'd be cool, actually.
Okay, so 52 blue tattooed across his back after the end of a 6-year relationship. He said this: I was deeply in love, but as it came out, she was treating me like a second category person in a relationship. I love that, a second category person. I was devastated, mainly because I have given her everything I could, and I thought she would do the same for me. Because of her, I lost connection with important friends. View of the wasted time made me sad. Story of 52 Hertz whale made me happy. For me, he is a symbol of being alone in a positive way. He is like a statement that despite being alone, he lives on. Wow, that is apropos. For Z, as he calls himself, 52 came to represent the lonely days after the breakup. Oh, so this guy calls himself Z. Watching sad movies alone at home with his 2 cats, Puma and Fuga. For a long time, I was singing in other frequency than everybody around. This is a translation, guys. That's why there's some broken English. He wrote to me. But for him, the whale also represented resilience. This is what my life looks like for the last 2 years. I'm swimming slowly through my part of ocean, trying to find people like me, patient, going past life, being sure that I'm not crippled, but special in a positive way. The tattoo was a way for Z to honor what the whale had meant to him and to communicate that meaning, to sing at a frequency that might be understood. It stretches across his upper back, the only place on my body huge enough to make it look awesome. Behind a detailed rendering of Moby Dick, another one of Z's fixations, there is a second whale, a ghost whale, just a negative space of bare skin defined by an outline of ink. Rather than illustrating 52 blue, Z's tattoo evoked the fact that he hadn't ever been seen. Sakina, a 28-year-old medical actor living in Michigan, associates 52 with a different kind of loss, a more spiritual struggle. I first saw her in a YouTube video wearing a hijab, describing how the story of 52 immediately made her think of the prophet Yunus, who was swallowed by a whale. It makes sense that the loneliest whale feels lonely, she said, because he had a prophet with him, inside of him, and now he doesn't. I met Sakina in a coffee shop in downtown Ann Arbor, where she told me that learning about 52 Blue had evoked certain lonely periods of her childhood. She grew up Muslim in New Mexico, but she hadn't imagined the whale hungry for love so much as for a sense of purpose, craving a prophet to swallow or a prophecy to fulfill. She wondered, is he aching for the divinity again?
David, an Irish father of two, identified with 52 Blue more deeply after he lost his job at Waterford Crystal, where he had been working for more than 2 decades. He wrote a song lamenting that he'd followed sorrow like Whale 52 Hertz, and then moved to Galway with his wife to forge a new life. I am told by everyone that Galway will be good for me, he wrote to me at the time. At the age of 47, he was starting with a singing group and going back to school. I have taken the discovery of the whale as a signal from the depths that I am close to discovery. All I really know is that 52 Hertz whale is out there singing, and that makes me feel less alone. 6 months later, David wrote to tell me that his wife had left him after 25 years of marriage. They could barely speak to each other. Life in Galway wasn't what he'd expected. His singing group had been a bust, but he still found solace in the whale. I know that she's still out there, he wrote, imagining her as a female, perhaps as his soulmate. I see others searching. Maybe I won't be alone for much longer. That's why I really like the story, is that there is this like sense of hope in it and longing that I think is really sweet and special.
Especially now. I didn't even realize, I mean, you had said this when you proposed that we read this story, but I didn't realize how relevant it is right now, as far as like, you know, there's like hundreds of millions of voices, especially online right now, that are sounding their echoes, but everyone is kind of alone in place, which is,
I know. So we all,
interesting. It's a good story for right now.
To hope for and give people hope as well.
Yeah.
I think we should keep reading a little more.
Okay. I'm here. The Natural World.
We haven't hit 20. But it's still my turn.
Oh, excuse me.
What are you eating?
My addiction.
I don't.
Full bag today. I'm gonna get a bag a day. Yeah.
No, thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
The natural world has always offered itself as a screen for human projection. The Romantics called this the pathetic fallacy. Ralph Waldo Emerson called it intercourse with heaven and earth. We project our fears and longings onto everything we're not, every beast, every mountain, and in this way we make them somehow kin. It's an act of humbling and longing and claiming all at once. Often we're not even aware that we're doing it. Decades after amateur astronomer Percival Lowell claimed to have seen canals on Mars and shadowy spokes on Venus, interpreting both as signs of alien life, an optometrist figured out that the settings on Lowell's telescope, its magnification and narrow aperture, meant that it was essentially projecting the interior of his eye onto the planets he was observing. The spokes of Venus were the shadows of his blood vessels swollen from hypertension. He wasn't seeing other life. He was seeing the imprint of his own gaze.
Wow. Projection. That's like a Rorschach test. Well, not really. It's more like, that's just wild. When Emerson claimed that every appearance in nature corresponds to some state of the mind, this is projection. It's like, oh, what I see is only what I'm capable of seeing. I love this part. I have all this underlined. When Emerson claimed that every appearance in nature corresponds to some state of mind, he understood this correspondence as a kind of completion. All the facts in natural history taken by themselves have no value, but are barren, like a single sex, he argued, suggesting that human projection effectively fertilized the egg. It's not only brought meaning to the barren body of natural history, Emerson suggested, but offered sustenance to man himself, becoming part of his daily food. Though Emerson celebrated this process, he also interrogated its implications. We are thus assisted by natural objects in the expression of particular meanings. But how great a language to convey such peppercorn informations, he wrote. Mm-hmm. We are like travelers using the cinders of a volcano to roast their eggs. He wondered whether it robbed the natural world of its integrity to deploy it as metaphor. Have mountains and waves and skies no significance but what we consciously give them when we employ them as emblems of our thoughts? Roasting an egg on volcano cinders might be an apt way of describing what it means to use a giant whale to embody dorm room homesickness or post-breakup ennui. Is he lonely? I hate to attach human emotions like that. There used to be a name for the kind of people who like to tell tall tales about animals. Nature Fakers. That's a great band, by the way.
I'm on live.
The peeps are asking for dolls. The wolf wants
here's
in.
one from when I was little.
Really? That's so clean.
Isn't he cute?
She kind of looks like Miss Frizzle from Magic School Bus.
Oh, and she reminds me of a character on like Doug. Remember that cartoon Doug? She's
Very
Doug.
much so. It's like Doug. Oh, Patty Mayonnaise.
She's very Patty Mayonnaise. Or Pepper Ann, but with short hair.
Oh my God, Pepper Ann. Yikes. I wonder where she is now. Wait, sorry. I wanted to,
I want to stop at the bottom of 20, so keep going.
there used to be a name for these kind of people who like to tell tales about animals. Nature Fakers, which is our band, I was saying. Teddy Roosevelt himself issued a scathing public condemnation of what he called yellow journalism of the woods. These syrupy accounts of the natural world projected human logic onto animal behaviors, spinning tales of wild fowls setting their own broken legs in mud-made casts, or crows convening schoolrooms for their young. This is like tabloids. I know as president I ought not to do this, he wrote, but criticize them anyway. He is not a student of nature at all who sees not keenly but falsely, who writes interestingly and untruthfully, and whose imagination is used not to interpret facts but to invent them. Roosevelt was especially concerned about fact blindness. It sounds like fake news. The possibility that telling fake stories about nature might blind us to the true ones. This is the danger of making the whale lonely or profit hungry, asking the duck to set a mud cast for his own broken leg. The possibility that feeling too much awe about nature we've invented will make us unable to appreciate the nature in which we live. Wow. That's good. That is good.
Someone asked me if I sleep with stuffed animals. I actually don't. Roosevelt's argument finds a strange modern echo in a Twitter account called @52Hertz, whose bio imagines the whale protesting his own symbolic status. I am no symbol, no metaphor. I am not the metaphysics you feel stirring in you. No stand-in for your obsessions. I am a whale. Many of his tweets are nonsense. There's a literal, it just is letters. But something about them seems honest. They are the tweets of a whale that doesn't know why he's on Twitter, and whose jumbled language protests the projection of language onto him at all. His gibberish is more interested in what isn't legible than in forcing the unknown into false legibility. It's more interested in acknowledging the gaps than in voicing the projections we hurl across them.
Oof.
I mean, I love this story. So I
it is so good.
If everyone wants to keep reading it, there's
like 10 pages left, I think.
10 more pages. But I think it's a really great story.
I'd never read that before.
Very thought-provoking.
That is
very, very now in a weird way.
Very much so. I just like the idea of criticizing people who are trying to attribute qualities to things that don't need to have those qualities. It's like when people are like, oh, that robot is sad. It's like, no, robots are never sad. They're robots, you know.
Or like, you're sad.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
It's such a good story.
Yeah, I love the tinge of longing and hope that's in that story. And it does wrap up really kind of beautifully. So I highly recommend finishing it.
And you guys can get it. We'll post it, whatever. We'll post it, but it's also in this feed. The link is right here, yeah.
The link is going right now.
Someone said, hey, robots have feelings. I agree. Well, this was fun, huh?
This was really fun. I was thinking tomorrow we were going to do a read-in that is actually like a silent read-in for 20 minutes where we're just going to go on and everybody can read their own thing, but you can like have company while you're reading. So we were both going to sit and just read to ourselves for 20 minutes tomorrow if anybody wants to join us.
Absolutely. Well, Going to be there. 100%.
I mean, I'll be there.
Cool. And we're going to post a lot more videos actually of authors that we're talking to, or we're going to be talking to authors who weren't able to go on their book tours because of what's going on. So people are saying that you should record an audiobook.
Oh, I would love to.
We'll
I would
sort
love
of set
to.
them into motion. All right, I'm going to.
You know, it'd be fun to read out loud.
What?
Some Eve Babbitt's.
Oh yeah. Do you have a new
Maybe
book?
we'll read Eve Babbitt's too. Like it's kind of like there's some
The
stories that are
language
light
is
and fun.
amazing. Why don't we read
and
Eve
also,
Babbitt's out loud tomorrow?
Yeah.
Or we
Well,
can...
I want to do the. I think I want to do the silent reading. And
Yeah.
Or I don't know. Do you guys want to vote? Do you want a silent reading or a not silent reading?
Oh my God. Well,
Let's vote. Can we vote?
What if you? Yeah. Oh wait. I think. Oh no. These.
We can also do both. Let's just vote on which one is tomorrow.
Hold on a second. I don't think I can put it in here, but we can say. Wait. Yes.
No. We all do a slide later, right?
Yeah.
I'm not the tech genius, in case you guys haven't noticed.
We need. Oh, not silent. People are silent. God, we're having a lot. It's back and forth.
Just not silent reading.
I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, I think you're right. Eve would be good. A short story that she's written.
Sorry.
Out loud, please. People say there's a lot going on.
There's a lot going on. I know. Because Eve's new book, I Used to Be Charming.
Is that stories or a novel?
Stories. It's so good.
So why don't we could also read a story. Well, whatever we decide to do tomorrow, we can read an Eve Babbitt story.
Yeah. But we're gonna be like we're gonna be coming on more.
Because y'all, it's soothing for me, and I think people are saying it's soothing, so we should keep doing it. Thank you guys.
Also, you guys should get this book, because our favorite story, one of our, I would say, can I speak for you too?
1000%. I know what you're gonna say.
I know. One of our top 10, I would say, favorite short stories of all time, or favorite essays of all time, is in here. Which one? Where is it?
Yeah, Sean, we'll do another countdown. If Paige is in here, I don't know if Paige is in here, but maybe she'll put the link to this book too.
Duh. Hold on. Where is my favorite story? One second. I have to. Don't get off yet.
I'm not going anywhere.
What time is it, by the way? You can't see what time it is when you're on live, I realized.
It's 3:30. Hold on a second. I know where it is. It's
3:30?
Yeah.
We've been on live for an hour?
Well, we took a little while getting started. Wait.
How could I forget? Because it's inspired by a Joan Didion quote. We tell ourselves stories in order to live again. One of the most fabulous essays I've ever read in my entire life. I literally read it out loud to my mom recently, and I started getting so choked up at the end that I was crying, and she couldn't believe.
It's an amazing, I don't know how much you guys know about past life theories, I guess. But it's really, it's a really beautiful story, and it's something that I didn't really know that much about. And that's the thing, is that with Leslie Jameson stories, like, she brings things to the fore that you've never heard of, and she makes them poetic and the most interesting, wouldn't you say? Like, I don't know if I'd read a story about the loneliest whale, but I'll read Leslie Jameson write about it. Past life regression. There we go.
Write about paint drying. I love it.
Literally. All right, fam.
Guys, thank you.
This was the kind of self-quarantine thing I needed. That's great to hear.
Oh, somebody says read something scary. All right, yeah. So here's what's going to happen this week, guys. We're going to do a scary story one day, Eve Babbitt's one day, and a silent reading the next day. I mean, not necessarily in that order.
100%. 100%.
All right,
bye,
love
babe.
You, queen. Love you to all the queens, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Bye, guys. Thank you for joining in. And yeah, we'll see you tomorrow.
My biggest fan, she said. That's sweet. Okay, guys.
The essay we started reading is pinned, and we'll post about it. Okay. Cool.
Puerto Rico. Hi, Puerto Rico. All right. Bye, queen.
Oh, this is inspiring. All right. Bye, Em. Bye.